In a world overrun by neocon warmongers, and with the mass media in the pockets of the cabal elite, there remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right, it's the MP Radio Security Council, the final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني سائر في طريق الحق يا جند.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. You're listening to the Security Council on Middle Path Radio, and I'm your brother Ahmed, and I'm joined in the studio today primarily by Mr. Producer, or the producer. We've got a couple of men down. Okay, so we've got two men down. Well, obviously you guys already know from last week that one of the permanent members, Robert the Beast Mugabe, aka Brother Zain, is away on pilgrimage, atoning for all the difficult days that he has given me and the Café Ikhwan crew. So he's away. Inshallah, I've asked him to make lots of dua for us on his pilgrimage. And tonight we've got some apologies from Brother Khabbab, who's had to be away on some urgent matters. But that doesn't mean our show has to suffer in any kind of way. We wish them all the best. And they will be joining us. Well, at least Brother Khabbab will be joining us next week, inshallah. And next week we've got quite a special show. Before we go into that, though, Mr. Producer, what's going on?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I'm actually sat here with my laptop, and I've got articles upon articles and upon articles upon articles, all ready for the standby.
You're taking over the show now, bro.
Yeah.
Mashallah. So I can just put my laptop away then. I don't need any more articles.
Let's work together on this.
Let's do a back-to-back on that one then, yeah? So this is different. See, without those moaning, whining permanent members of the Security Council who are not so permanent today, always complaining about how I've got so many articles. It's like, this is the week's, news and the
roundup.
Developments. This is a roundup of the week's, news and stuff, global and local. So yeah, surely, I mean, I normally, whenever I put these articles and make a little short list of these articles, or these items of agenda, what I normally do is I skip a lot of other important stuff. So, those of you guys listening, inshallah, brothers and sisters, if you're listening, and you think that we've missed something important, maybe there's a issue that we've skipped, or you think is of salience and importance, then give us a call to talk about it. You can set the agenda, inshallah, as long as it's sensible. There's something that maybe we haven't covered. We maybe didn't look at that perspective. As a complete news item that you think is really important, call the number on 07 477 080 248. That's 07 477 080 248. And those of you who do tune in from abroad, the number will appear like this. It's +44 7477 080 248. Okay, drop us an email if you like. It's info@middlepathradio.com. And the last thing I was going to say, you should be following us already, okay, on Twitter, because that's where we're most active right now. We put all our live show updates, reminders on the shows themselves, Middle Path Radio related stuff, and details as to what we're going to discuss on the show, and all of those kind of jazz. But what normally happens is we also tweet a lot of the stuff, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, a lot of the items that come up in the news and stuff. We normally retweet those articles, so it gives you kind of like a glimpse into what would be discussed on the Security Council, and most likely on Sundays when our Bangla brothers do their current affairs program. So be sure to go and follow our Twitter account. It's at Middle Path Radio. Okay, why did I mention Twitter? I just forgot. I lose my thread there. Django of the week.
Who was it? Did we decide who it was going to be?
There's no shortlist today because, well, I have the shortlist, of course, because I'm the one who prepares the agendas for tonight's show, so I know who would make the list. But, I mean, I don't decide exclusively. That's why I want people on Twitter, inshallah, those of you who are listening, okay, follow our account and use the hashtag Django of the Week. That's just JANGO of the week. One word, okay? Django of the week. No D. Okay, that Django is another level. He's a legit Django. This is, we're talking about, like, you know, the funny Djangos, okay, with a J. So Django of the week, if you think somebody comes to mind who, you know, is a cut above the rest, who should make the you know, nomination, okay, for Django of the week on the Security Council, then be sure to drop us a tweet, okay?
I was just going to say,
who won it last week, do you know?
I can't remember who it was now.
We gave it to Archie, the EDL pedo.
That's the right.
That's he's a Django, he's a dirty Django.
Congratulations.
What? Yeah, you made it to the Django of the week, buddy. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, you're some sick scumbag. And you know, the equally sick scumbags have made it every week to the Django of the week. I mean, who's previously we had the philanthropist of the year, the GQ award, Mr. Tony Blair, peace envoy. My God, talk about taking the liberties, calling that guy the peace envoy to the Middle East. That guy has waged more wars in the Middle East than other people, you know, could even dream of, you know. But yeah. Let's give this guy the Philanthropist of the Year award. So he made Django of the Week one of the weeks. Mr. Producer, sorry, I keep...
No, I was just going to say, can I start off with my first nomination for the Django of the Week?
Oh, yes.
Which actually brings me to the first article of tonight.
Oh, yes.
And I nominate the Telecommunication Minister of Bangladesh.
Boom. What's this guy done?
This guy, I mean, the only word I can describe him is he's a Django. Read the article, okay, and then you get the.
Because we've had some soft Djangos in the past, like Tim Cook.
But this Django, I mean,
this guy's just another level.
I don't know. I mean, okay, right. Let me read it out.
Go on.
Okay, Bangladesh has sacked a top minister after his criticism of the Muslim pilgrimage of Hajj, which triggered protests. Abdul Latif Siddiq, the country's telecommunication minister, who is in New York, he's with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, made comments saying that I am dead against the Hajj and the Tablighi Jamaat. 2 million people had gone to Saudi Arabia to perform Hajj. Hajj is a waste of manpower. Those who perform Hajj do not have any productivity. They deduct from the economic situation and they spend a lot of money abroad. Well, I mean,
what can I say?
Hifazat Islam in Bangladesh, who's an apostate, set him a 24-hour deadline for the government to sack him or else. I mean, how much of a Django can you get?
Yeah, I mean, that's just like, I thought, okay, you're going to criticize when you started off by saying that, you know, he made some criticism of maybe, you know, people have like complaints about their experience during Hajj, you know, this Hajj services, you know, the Saudi government's, you know, treatment and their, you know, just in general, you know, the kind of hotel system that they have and the way people, you know, I thought maybe along those lines, you know, how people, you know, have to stop. But the guy is actually of Hajj, and he's saying what he's saying is it's like a wasteful
of manpower, resources. I think what he was trying to drive.
Does he know that it's the fifth pillar of Islam?
I was going to say, his criticism on the 5 pillars of Islam.
Yeah,
I think he, because
that it's an act of worship, probably the most profound act of worship, you know.
Well, I mean, he doesn't just stop there.
Most life-changing, you know,
I mean,
experience.
He doesn't just stop there. He also slammed the non-political Islamic group Tablighi Jamaat. Millions whose followers congregate outside Bangladesh capital, each in what authorities have largest gathering after Hajj. Million people who gathered do not do any work except halting traffic movement throughout the country. There was no comment from the Tabligh. Not only criticizing the...
When you have like, how many people? 2 million people coming. Obviously, traffic's going to come to a standstill.
It's one of those big julshas kind of
Look, I'm not, going to be saying I'm speaking for the Tabligh Jamaat or I love the Tabligh Jamaat or nor do I hate them. I'm just saying that when you get 2 million people congregating on one place, you're going to have traffic issues, man.
Well, that's his main pickle.
What's the Minister for Communications?
Yeah.
He needs some more training. This guy is just, how did this guy turn out to be, this is the state of Bangladesh, bro. This guy's Minister for Communication. And
you're criticizing, 2 million people to your country.
Yeah.
And you're complaining about the traffic backlog. If this guy does not make it as Django of the Week,
on one hand, he's complaining that doesn't this cancel out? He's complaining that loads of people, not 2 million, obviously, from Bangladesh go to.
This is from the neighbouring countries,
spend, right?
Neighbouring countries come in.
But from Bangladesh, there's only a fixed cap, according to the Saudi embassy. They don't let any people come in from all countries. They have per nation quota, right? Yes, they do. So a cap. So it's not 2 million people going from Bangladesh to Saudi Arabia, but he's still complaining that that's a lot of money and spending. Look at the guy where he's coming from. Forget the whole religious angle, which is just kind of, technically, yes, it is blasphemy if you do make a mockery of the of act of worship that is firmly established and agreed upon by every, from whatever leaning that you have, whichever persuasion, entire spectrum of the Muslim community, everybody agrees. The Hajj is one of the most blessed acts of worship you can actually do for your Creator, and attest to that, and they have life-changing experiences, and so. For this guy to come out just on the religious level, that's why they've been criticized for having blasphemed, because in Islam you're not.
They've actually said that Hafez of Islam have actually called him an apostate. They've declared that he's an apostate, because for you to say that, you actually negate. Well,
yes,
you may be negating a pillar of Islam and negating a pillar of
your
Islam,
faith
which
as well.
You've been negating your own faith.
That's right. You rejected and made. You criticized. If you criticize just the way people are conducting themselves, not criticizing the idea and the concept of going to Hajj, as an act of worship. He's criticized it on a on a purely ideological religious level, and that's probably why Hafez Islam have come out to make it clear that to do so is really tantamount to blasphemy and apostasy. Okay.
I will take it a little bit more further than that, and I will say, look, let's take it out a little bit more further. What political brownie points does it stand to gain by saying this? That they want to show that they've got this tolerance or this non-tolerance for Islam. They want to clamp down on Islam. Are they trying to please the West? What purpose?
Why do you think? I'm trying to think. I can't think.
I'm just bewildered.
I think this guy is just one of those loose cannons who just ran his mouth. That's what I'm thinking. How did this guy become communications minister? Because I think he's just one of those loose cannons. He's just spoke.
He can't obviously communicate.
Mind. He can't obviously communicate. Even if you have some unpleasant views on certain issues, sometimes you don't want to be airing those on a public level, especially if you're a minister, a very important person in high office. But then his argument about economic thing as well, that's what I was trying to make. Saying that a lot of Bashi people leave Bangladesh and then spend money abroad. That's economically something that the country of Bangladesh could have benefited from. But then he's criticizing in the same breath 2 million people, a bigger number of people coming to Bangladesh from outside of Bangladesh, non-Bangladeshis, and non-native Bangladesh, and that's boon for the economy. So it not only cancels out, it actually, if he's just thinking about it from an economic sense.
Well, that's my nomination.
It definitely makes it.
Also, a very good, I think that also kind of closes number one article that I have.
What's his name again? Tariqul Islam or Abdul Latif something?
Abdul Latif Siddiq.
Abdul Latif Siddiq. There's a lot of dodgy Abdul Latifs out there, seriously. Now, if you're listening, Abdul Latif, I'm not talking about you, but there is a lot of dodgy Abdul Latifs out there. Okay, especially, anyway, there are also a lot of good Abdul Latifs out there. So I just want to stay balanced on that issue. You know who I'm talking to. Anyways, that's a little in joke there, brothers and sisters. So what else have we got? Okay, that was a curveball from
I mean,
the producer.
Can we stick on the point of anti-Islam, stroke Islam?
Let's go with those. Because you know me, I'm going to bring the Syria angle.
Yeah.
Come rain or shine.
Let's stick to this.
But you run with this one.
Islamophobia. What's going on? I mean, I've got a clip here. I'll play to everybody.
Where is it from?
It's an interview that was aired. When was it? Last night, I think it was on CNN. And basically, it's just titled as how racist the news presenters find it hard to understand a simple point about Islam. And the point is, does Islam promote violence?
That sounds interesting. Let's hear that clip, Sheikh.
Insist it is a peaceful religion. Others disagree and point to the primitive treatment in Muslim countries of women and other minorities.
So let's discuss this now. We're joined now by Reza Aslan, a scholar of religions, professor at the University of California, Riverside, and the author of Zealot, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. Let's talk about this because it's a very interesting conversation every time we have it. Before we get into this discussion, I want to play for you this clip from Bill Maher's show just this Friday night. Here it is.
President Obama keeps it not Islamic. Well, maybe they don't practice the Muslim faith the same way he does. But that across the world believe, and they do, that humans deserve to die for merely holding a different idea, or drawing a cartoon, or writing, or eloping with the wrong person. Not only does the Muslim world have something in common with ISIS, it has too much in common with ISIS. There's so much talk. You can applaud. Sure.
He went on for a good 5 or 6 minutes about how women or circumcision for women not respect gay people, and then we'll talk.
Well, I like Bill Maher. I've been on the show a bunch of times. He's a comedian, but frankly, when it comes to the topic of religion, he's not very sophisticated in the way that he thinks. I mean, the argument about female genital mutilation problem is a perfect example.
Well, wait, because he says hold on a second, Reza, because he says it's a country problem. He says that in Somalia.
Yeah, but that's 90% female genital mutilation. It's a Christian country. Ethiopia has 75% female genital mutilation. It's a Christian country. Where else in the Muslim majority states is female genital mutilation an issue? But again, this is the problem, is that you make these facile arguments like that women are somehow mistreated in the Muslim world. Well, that's certainly true in many Muslim majority countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia. Do you know that Muslims have elected 7 women as their heads of states? Those Muslim majority countries. How many women do we have as head of states in the United States?
For the most part, it is not a free society for women.
Well, in Saudi Arabia, it certainly is in Indonesia, Malaysia, it certainly is in Bangladesh, it certainly is in Turkey. I mean, again, this is the problem, is that you're talking about a religion of 1.5 billion people, and certainly it becomes very easy to just simply paint them all with a single brush by saying, well, in Saudi Arabia, they can't drive, and so that's somehow representative of Islam. It's representative of Saudi Arabia.
That these aren't extreme. We often talk about crack down on extremists, and why aren't we out about extremists? In Saudi Arabia, when women can't vote and they can't draw more about what... That's not extremist, that's commonplace. Why don't we talk more about the commonplace wrongs that are happening in some of these countries?
It's extremist when compared to rights and response women, Muslim women around the world. It's an extremist of dealing with it.
But it's not extremist in that it's not extreme in Saudi Arabia. That's the norm.
Oh, no, it's not. I mean, look, Saudi Arabia is one of the most, if not the most extremist Muslim country in the world. In the month that we've been talking about ISIS and their terrible actions in Iraq and Syria, Saudi Arabia, our closest ally, has beheaded 19 people. Nobody seems to care about that because Saudi Arabia sort of preserves our national interests.
Okay.
This is the problem, is that these kinds of conversations that we're having aren't really being had in any kind of legitimate way. We're not talking about women in the Muslim world. We're using 2 or 3 examples to justify a generalization. That's actually the definition of bigotry.
All right, fair enough. Let's listen to Benjamin Netanyahu at the United Nations today.
So when it comes to their ultimate goals, Hamas is ISIS and ISIS is Hamas. And what they share in common, all militantness share in common.
So Reza, the question at the bottom of the screen that everyone is... Does Islam promote violence?
Islam doesn't promote violence or peace. Islam is just every religion in the world. It depends on what you bring to it. If you're a violent person, your Islam, your Judaism, your Christianity, your Hinduism is going to be violent. There are marauding Buddhist monks in Myanmar slaughtering women and children. Does Buddhism promote violence? Of course not. People are violent or peaceful, and that depends on their politics, their social world, the way that they see their communities, the way they see themselves.
So, Reza, you don't think that there's anything more, there's the justice system in Muslim countries, you don't think is somehow more primitive or subjugates women more than in other countries?
Did you hear what you just said? You said in Muslim countries. I just told you that Indonesia, women are absolutely 100% equal to men. In Turkey, they have had more female representatives, more female heads of state in Turkey than we have in the United States.
But in Pakistan,
stop saying things like Muslim countries.
Women are still being stoned.
And that's a problem for Pakistan. You're
so in
right.
other words,
so let's criticize
I just want to be clear on what your point is, because I thought you and Bill Maher were saying the same thing. Your point is that Muslim countries are not to blame. There is nothing particular, there's no common thread in Muslim countries. You can't paint with a broad brush that somehow their justice system, Sharia law, or what they're doing in terms of stoning and female mutilation is different than in other countries like Western countries.
Stoning and mutilation and those barbaric practices condemned and criticized by everyone. The actions of individuals and societies and countries like Iran, like Pakistan, like Saudi Arabia must be condemned. They don't belong in the 21st century. But to say Muslim countries as though Pakistan and Turkey are the same, as though Indonesia and Saudi Arabia are the same, as though somehow what is happening in the most extreme forms of these repressive countries, these autocratic countries, is representative of what's happening in every other Muslim country, is frankly, and I use this word seriously, stupid. So let's stop doing that.
Okay, Reza, let's listen. I want you to listen to Benjamin Netanyahu again. This is actually the one I wanted you to hear.
Yeah, the ISIS.
But our hopes and the world's hopes for peace are in danger, because everywhere we look, militant Islam is on the march. It's not militants, it's not Islam, it's militant Islam. And typically, its first victims are other Muslims, but it spares no one.
He's making a clear distinction there. He says it's not militants, it's not Islam, it's militant Islam. Do you understand his distinction there? Is he correct?
Well, he's correct in talking about militant Islam being a problem. He is absolutely incorrect in talking about ISIS equaling Hamas. That's just ridiculous. No one takes him seriously when he says things like that. And frankly, it's precisely why, under his leadership, Israel has become so incredibly isolated from the rest of the global community. Those kinds of statements are illogical, they're irrational, they're so obviously propagandistic. In fact, he went so far as to then bring up the Nazis, which has become kind of a verbal tick for him whenever he brings up either Hamas or ISIS. Again, these kinds of oversimplifications, I think, only cause more danger. There is a very real problem. ISIS is a problem. Al-Qaeda is a problem. These militant Islamic groups like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like the Taliban have to be dealt with. But it doesn't actually help us to deal with them when, instead of talking about rational conflicts, rational criticisms of a particular religion, we instead so easily slip into bigotry by simply painting everyone with a single brush, as we have been doing in this conversation, mind you.
Well, we're just asking the questions, Reza, and you're answering, and I think you answered very fairly, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Reza Aslan.
We appreciate your perspective
Yep.
and helping
My
everyone.
Well, there you have it.
What do you make of that?
I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I sometimes question these presenters and these newsreaders. I mean, do they even do any research on the topics that they're going to be talking about? Clearly not. A simple thing. I mean, they don't even understand the concept of bigotry. I just don't understand that.
I think it's just, they don't need to make... They're under the impression that, what do I need to research? It's a fact. Muslims are terrorists. Islam is a violent ideology. End of story. Hamas is... What did he say? ISIS is Hamas and Hamas is ISIS.
How do you say that again?
Hamas is ISIS. What is that?
Say that again?
Hamas. We should put him as a nominee for Django.
Just for him, just for saying Hamas.
He's trying to be so effective, with this in a deep, the Israeli PM. Hamas is ISIS, and ISIS is Hamas, and he's not Islam, he's militant Islam.
If anybody's out there got a better impression of him, do call in.
Thanks, I get the point. So I mean, even what's his name, Reza Aswan, is that the name that they use? He made some really good points. Obviously, I don't agree with everything he was saying, but I think he articulated, especially on the points on the bigotry that's very rife in the mainstream media. And also from the rhetoric that's coming out of government and from people, heads of state, and so he's really highlighted that clearly. I'm not sure what he can say when he speaks about rebel groups in Syria or those fighting in American occupation in Afghanistan. I'm not sure how much he can say, because there are laws that will probably have him behind bars before he even leaves that studio. But considering that he believes that stuff, he still made some very valid points, especially around the issue of bigotry and the complete and utter ignorance, the Islam hating, the Islamophobia, the ignorance about how it's an Islamic problem or it's a Muslim problem. He's really made some excellent points in exposing the stupidity, as he put it, actually, in his own words. Just seriously, this is stupid that you guys are talking about it in this way. And he contrasted the variety of differences. There's good in the community, there's bad in the community. Why are you picking on the Muslim community? Just like in any religious group or faith or even non-religious group, let's say atheism, they've had more, let's be fair, more than their fair share of wars and bloodshed, and tyranny. The last couple, worst of the ones that we can remember in recent history is the First and Second World War. They were not led by people who wanted to establish the church or establish a caliphate, or it wasn't done in the name of Buddha. It was done in the name of, secular ideas.
Nationalistic gain,
that's right. So most of the bloodshed, and let's not joke about it, millions of people died. I mean, unbelievable. Countless people died. It ruined the entire world. The world has not yet seen that kind of destruction and loss of life.
On that scale.
And, the way they are picking on how the religion is a problem and, Islam is spreading this ideology. They've got a problem with Islam. It is purely racist. It is Islamophobic. It is bigotry. And I rate this guy, Reza, for having, called it out for what it is. Any other points on that? So, I mean, we've got two nominees at least now. We've got Abdul Latif Siddiqui from Bangladesh, and we've just added, what's the guy name again?
Hamas.
He's some unknown criminal in the Middle East. Who isn't Muslim, by the way, who's killing civilians, by the way, who killed civilians, by the way, and he's not brown, he's white, and he's Jewish. He's not Muslim. Yet the newsreaders were happy to quote from a child killer, on a mass scale. They're willing to quote this guy and use him as some form of authority on the issue of militant Islam, in inverted commas here. Yet he is the guy who's doing the bloodshed. He is the guy who's killing the children. How many children has ISIS actually killed, compared to just the 2-week or 3-week carnage that his Israeli government meted out on the Palestinian civilian population, probably the most densely populated or concentrated population in the world. And it's a civilian population. How do you get that kind of bigotry? You bring this guy, a murderer, a child killer, to come and talk about militancy and violence. This is just a joke.
Talking about international terrorists.
You're going to go to another one?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have another clip here. Do you want to give a bit of background to that?
Is that the CNN clip?
No, this is actually the Qatar Amir one.
Yeah, that's a CNN clip. That's a CNN clip. You know what? That's a good clip to go to, because I'm about to go on to the Syria issue. So I'll give a quick background to that. Let's actually read this one while you prep that one for us, Mr. Producer. I'm going to read this lovely. I just got this in right now. From one of my colleagues, and he shared this to me. And, this is what we need you guys to be doing, right? Text us on 07477 080 248. This is just an article written probably earlier today. Drop in your agendas, what you think we should be talking about, just like my colleague did. So I'm going to cover it on air right now. It's very much in line with what we want to just talk about. So the number again is 07477 080 248. Alternatively, you can tweet at us, okay, hashtag Security Council, okay, at Middle Path Radio, and give us your ideas. Guys, can you guys talk about this? This is something that is underreported, or this is an angle that you're missing here. So we'll try our best to bring it on air and make it one of the agendas. Better still, why don't you call the studio and you make it an agenda by talking about it here, live on air, on the Security Council. So, what have we got? This is, I think that's already ready. The clip is ready. But before I go, I want to read this stunning piece of work by a gentleman called George Monbiot. I'm not aware of any of his other works, so I'm not going to comment on any of that. But just on this writing alone, it's in The Guardian. I believe it's in the Comment is Free section, which is a blog section of The Guardian, media newspaper. So it says here, the title is, "Why Stop at ISIS When We Could Bomb the Whole Muslim World? Humanitarian arguments, if consistently applied, could be used to flatten the entire Middle East." He goes on to say, "Let's bomb the Muslim world, all of it, to save the lives of its people." Yep. This is, one of our previous shows was saying that this is, we're going to war to kill people so that we can spread peace. So this is how he starts his article. He says here, "Let's bomb the Muslim world, all of it, to save the lives of its people. Surely this is the only consistent moral course. Why stop at ISIS, when the Syrian government has murdered and tortured so many? This, after all, was last year's moral imperative. What's changed?" Well, Assad is killing civilians, and we know he's killed a hell of a lot more civilians than ISIS could ever try to, given, and by the way, this is obviously disputed by ISIS. "How about blasting the Shia militias in Iraq?" says George. This is George Monbiot. "One of them selected 40 people from the streets of Baghdad in June and murdered them for being Sunnis." Oh my goodness. You said the Shia guys do that as well? Not just ISIS? Well, he continues. He says, another Shiite militiaman in Iraq, Shia militia, massacred 68 people at a mosque in August. These are hyperlinks he's given us here in his article for you to go and reference for yourself that these incidences, these atrocities have definitely taken place. They now talk openly, the Shiites do, of cleansing, okay, and erasure once ISIS has been defeated. A Shia politician warns, "We are in the process of creating Shia Al-Qaeda radical groups equal in their radicalization to the Sunni Al-Qaeda." It begs you to wonder. There are already groups far more radical than the Al-Qaeda in the Shia world. There's the Hezbollah, that's been the Hizb al-Shaitan, who is the ally of Assad, who's been killing, what is it, altogether now, over 200,000 civilians. They are far worse than Al-Qaeda. Okay, far worse. Well, let's take Al-Qaeda's worst case scenario. They did September the 11th. 3,000 people, was it, that got killed? 3,000? That pales, okay, in comparison to the 200,000 that Assad has killed with the help of Iran, with the help of the same Shia that the Americans are helping, the British are going to help in Iraq. Those very same militiamen, those same radicals, are the ones killing more people than ISIS has killed, killing more people than even Al-Qaeda. That doesn't mean I'm saying, Al-Qaeda is all great and everything. I'm just saying, let's put the facts, get the facts straight. Let's put things in perspective. Okay, let's look at everything in their correct proportion. So what he continues to say here, George Monbiot, in his article, he says, "What humanitarian principle instructs you to stop there? In Gaza this year, 2,100 Palestinians were massacred," says George, "including people taking shelter in schools and hospitals." You heard that right. They were massacred in their schools and hospitals, not by ISIS? No. Not by Hamas? No. Not by Al-Qaeda. He doesn't bother informing us because he expects everybody to know that that was the Israeli government, the Israeli armed forces, the ally of America and best friend of United Kingdom, their birth child of the United Kingdom. Surely these atrocities demand an air war against Israel, right? Says George. And what's the moral basis for refusing to liquidate Iran? Okay? And he goes on to explain why Iran should be on the crosshairs if ISIS is in the crosshairs of the Western world, the free world, the democratic world. Okay? The Americans so he goes on and he gives countless stories. Is there not an urgent duty to blow up Saudi Arabia as well? It has beheaded 59 people so far this year. Okay? And he goes on to explain, if you guys believe that beheadings are bad because ISIS are doing beheadings, well, your best friends in the Saudi monarchy and the Saudi government who are lining your pockets with Saudi riyals and oil paid dollars. Okay? How come you guys got no problem, an objection with beheadings over there by those guys? Why is it just ISIS? And guys, he makes a really good case. Go on, Mr. Producer.
I was just going to say that takes us nicely to our clip.
Yes, go ahead. I'm going to read back onto this though, straight after the clip.
Funding or allowing sympathetic sheikhs, mullahs, sympathetic rich people to fund these movements.
Well, we have to
this is the Emir of Qatar,
see the difference between
interviewed
movements.
by Amanpour on
in
CNN.
America and some countries, they look at some
who's been
movements
accused
as
of
terrorist
funding
movements.
terrorism. This
in
is
our
his
part
response.
of region, we don't. But if you're talking about certain movements, especially in Syria and in Iraq, we all consider them terrorist movement, and we don't accept any fund for those, and we don't accept anybody funding those groups.
People who go to the mosques and whip people up and say we've got to, help jihad.
We have a strong law against funding terrorist groups, counter-terrorism operation that we take against funding terrorist groups. We don't accept people funding terrorist groups. But as I said, there's differences between some countries of who are the terrorists and who are the maybe Islamist groups, but we don't consider them as terrorists. Such as groups in Syria, groups in Libya, groups in Egypt as well.
But isn't that a problem then? Because you then have a fundamental difference with some of your coalition partners. And you have been criticized. Qatar has over the years been criticized of sort of throwing money at a lot of these groups. And some of them are troublemakers in Syria. Some of them are extremists. So you're saying that you don't recognize them as extremists?
No, we do recognize extremists. We believe that they're extremists. We believe that they're extremists, and we don't fund extremists. But there are differences. There are differences that some countries and some groups which comes from Islamic background are terrorists, and we don't accept that.
So there you heard it from the Emir of Qatar on CNN when he was asked, you've been accused. And Qatar has been accused of funding terrorism, especially in Syria. So he gave two remarks he made, which is really kind of the same point, which is, obviously we don't fund terrorism. We're not really in the business of killing innocent civilians and stuff like that. But there's a difference between who we call terrorists and who the rest of the world would like to call terrorists. When we say the rest of the world, we're talking about really the Americans and the Brits and their allies. So he says, there's a difference. Just because there are Islamic groups out there, we don't consider them automatically terrorist groups, okay? And he referred to groups in Syria, Islamist groups in Libya, and he even mentioned Egypt. And he said, no, we don't necessarily consider terrorists. So the definition of what is terrorism is, as you can see from head of state there, is not something that is agreed upon by all people. And I think that was a really response to that question. Does Qatar fund terrorism? Why throwing money at these groups in Syria? And he made it very clear, not all of them are terrorist groups. In fact, the vast majority of them are people who are fighting for their freedom, fighting against the murderous butcher regime of Assad. If that's terrorism, then you've got the definition of terrorism completely upside down. So he's, that shows again, even people like him are coming under pressure with the classic, what's the word I'm looking for? They're throwing the book at them, the terrorism book. Once you drop that name, then the kind of discussion becomes, all about how you have to clean yourself of that name. You've got to distance yourself from that. But he handled it very well, and he actually said very, very categorically, no, we don't support terrorism, no. But we definitely don't consider all Islamic groups to be terrorists, as some governments around the world are currently doing. Okay, and that's been the basis of their attack on Syria right now. And that's exactly what George Monbiot is saying in The Guardian. And I'm going to quickly read. He says here, in July, okay, let me quickly go back a second or so. It says here, in 2009, Hillary Clinton warned in a secret memo that Saudi Arabia remains a critical financial support base for Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and other terrorist groups, says Hillary. In July, the former head of MI6, Sir Richard Dearlove, revealed that Prince Bandar bin Sultan, until recently, the head of Saudi intelligence, told him the time is not far off in the Middle East, Richard, when it will be literally God help the Shia. More than 1 billion Sunnis simply had enough of them. Okay, so Saudi support for extreme Sunni militias in Syria during Bandar's tenure is widely blamed for the rapid rise of ISIS. So he's just making all his arguments as to why he thinks there's a double standard here. If you guys hate ISIS because of their anti-Shia rhetoric, then you've got boys, your friends, your cronies sitting in Saudi Arabia having the exact same putting out the same exact same narrative and rhetoric. So he's exposing the double standards here. He says the humanitarian arguments aired in Parliament last week, if consistently applied, could be used to flatten the entire Middle East and West Asia. By this means, you could end all human suffering, liberating the people of these regions from the veil of tears in which they live. Perhaps this is the plan, says George. Perhaps this is actually the plan. Barack Obama has now bombed 7 largely Muslim countries, in each case citing a moral imperative. The result, as you can see in Libya, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia and Syria, has been quote-unquote of jihadi groups. Chaos, murder, oppression. Evil has been driven from the face of the earth by the destroying angels of the West. See how George mocks the foreign military campaigns in the Muslim world. So now we have a new target, and to dispense mercy. Okay, yes, the agenda and disgusting, and he explains why it's disgusting. He says it's a network of death, but it's one of many networks of death. Worse still, a Western crusade appears to be exactly what ISIS wants. So he goes on and he explains how there's Assad doing much worse than ISIS, and he goes on to explain how Obama has actually strengthened the unity between ISIS and other rebel groups, when actually other rebel groups were quite opposed to ISIS. But because it's become quite clear to those in Syria, rebel-wise, the UK authorities have now sided with Bashar al-Assad, the common enemy of all Syria, secular, Islamic, non-religious, non-militant, non-armed and armed groups, the common enemy of all of these Sunnis in Syria, who have been enduring the most horrible atrocities, undescribable atrocities in Syria. It has become clear to these people, not only has it not done nothing to Assad over the years, not even said anything to Assad over the years, has now actually joined in sharing the same Syrian skies, where the same Syrian jets bombed Syrian population. Now the American, the British and many Arab planes fly in those same skies alongside Assad's planes to drop on the Syrian revolution. And it's been made, a lot of the rebel groups think twice. Look, it's clearly, Assad and his best friends, okay, America and the UK. They're not new best friends, by the way. Old buddies coming in to kill off the revolution. And that's exactly what is the perception on the ground. We need to quickly move on. Mr. Producer, do you got any other interesting stories? Because I love this Syria thing, because a lot of people are not seeing it for what it is. It's so clear as day for me. Alhamdulillah.
I mean, I've got tons of stuff. I mean, there's on Newsnight, the guy from Dragon's Den. I mean, I
don't know who these people are.
myself. But
you want to hold that because I'm still got some serious stuff. I got a couple more. Why do you find that hot issue that you want to bring to the table? I'm quickly going to drop a headline here. It's from the Mirror, and it says here: the ISIS airstrikes. MI6 is in secret talks with the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad's regime. So if you thought I was just having a rant a second ago, how Assad and UK and the US are in boots with one another, and that it was just based on some sort of stupid conspiracy theory, well, you're wrong, because here it is in the Mirror. British intelligence officers have been negotiating with the tyrant's senior foreign office diplomats and spy networks for months in the Syrian capital Damascus. So they've been working together long before even ISIS was the so-called target. British intelligence officers have been to the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad's regime to pave the way for attacks on ISIS. Members of the MI6 foreign spy agency have been negotiating with the senior foreign office of the Assad regime and spy networks for months in the Syrian capital in the run-up to Gulf War III, the Sunday Mirror can reveal. It contradicts Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond's insistence that Britain will not strike deals with the despot, i.e. Assad, as such an alliance would not be practical, sensible or helpful. He denied Britain will slip into a poisonous pact with Assad, despite calls for such a deal by military experts, including former head of British Army General Sir Richard Dannatt, a story that we ran a couple, how the former head of the army has been actually calling for more cooperation with the Assad regime and the UK government. So you can see here now contradictory reports coming out, clearly stating that they were actually working with the Assad regime all along. Moving swiftly on. That's my rant on Syria. There's more related stuff, but not exactly Syria.
This is slightly off the topic a little bit.
Yeah, let's have something off the
What's your knowledge on NFL? Do you know how it's played?
I don't know nothing about NFL.
Oh, come on.
All I know is called American Football.
National Football League or something like that. I don't know
what it is.
All I know, they wear massive shoulder pads
and helmets,
and they've got like gum shoes.
It's basically a soft version of what the British guys here do rugby. Yeah, they're real.
I mean, a soft version or a hard version?
They got all the padding and in rugby they don't mess around, bro. No padding, nothing. It's all brute power. There's a lot of little puny guys decked out in all their equipment and their helmets. They look kind of hard on the pitch. That's what I thought. And then they call it football and they don't even kick the ball.
Well, I mean,
that's America for you.
Well, it's customary that after you score a goal,
rugby serious sport, you get a little bit of admiration for those guys. Yeah.
Okay, so every time when you score a goal, there's usually some kind of action that everyone does. In the NFL, there's actually a rule stating that you can go down and you can praise the Lord in the Christian. The Christian way.
Christian fashion.
But there's this news is hitting everywhere at the moment. Big storm. In the NFL, when a Christian player sinks to the knees, sinks to the ground after a touchdown, he praises God. He's not penalised under the league's rules against going to the ground in celebration after a play. But apparently, Muslim players should think twice trying to take advantage of the same rule. Last night, Hussein Abdullah, who plays safety for the Kansas City Chiefs, scored a touchdown. It was presumably a big moment for him. After he scored, Abdullah, a practicing Muslim, briefly sank his knees to the ground and touched his forehead to the ground, and instantly it was recognizable that it was a Muslim prayer gesture. But to the
this is the sujood.
This is the sujood.
The prostration to Allah.
As soon as he made
to Allah.
Touchdown.
Okay.
So, but to the referee, it was an unsportsmanlike conduct and gave Abdullah a 15-yard penalty for excessive celebration.
Wow. So he's been penalized.
He's been penalized
for effectively doing the same thing as his Christian compadres
that would do some sort of celebration act to kind of celebrate the fact that they've scored a goal,
or to thank their who they think is God,
to score the goal.
Being grateful.
In this case, we have Hussein Abdullah, who obviously by making this gesture of a sujood, showed to the world that he is a practicing Muslim, and as a result, the referee saw it fit to penalize him for unsportsmanlike.
And this is actually on social media right now.
It's gone.
Everyone's
it's gone
kind
everywhere.
of yeah, exactly. It's gone ape, and everybody's pointing out the double standards here and the hypocrisy. And it's clearly religious discrimination when your policies state that a Christian can do so, but a Muslim can't. That's what I call religious discrimination. Because if that's not religious discrimination, then show me what is religious discrimination. Because you say like, you're Muslim, you can't go on your knees to pray to God. But Christian man, it's a good thing. You go ahead right away, sir. Go praise your Lord.
Well, I mean, the referee, his response to it is that his officials have said that we have no reason to believe that the referee acting out of prejudice or bigotry. It is more likely that he simply did not recognize Abdullah's gesture as a prayer. But even if his decision was a result of ignorance rather than discriminatory intent, it still matters.
Well, I would say, like, at best, he can say, I'm such an ignorant person, I don't know nothing about Islam and the huge burgeoning Muslim population, especially in sport.
On. I mean,
you got to be like living under some rock.
Your head's got to be in cloud 9.
Yeah. That's the kind of excuse he's coming up with right now.
I'm
just an ignorant fool. I don't know what Islam is. You never heard of it before. Basically, I've never seen a Muslim. I don't know what Muslim prayer is. Or he's obviously just being racist, and he's trying to cover it up by pretending.
But the thing is, obviously,
fool. Has the decision been overturned? That's what I'd like to know, because if it was just if he's standing by his position that, oh well, I didn't know. You see, then they should have, obviously now that you've realised, it should have been an apology there. There should have been, what's the word? An overturning of the decision.
His
That's
team,
normally what happens.
Obviously there will be some sort of repercussion from this, but obviously I don't think the football team itself are going to take it further. Well, obviously they won 41-15. Not that it means anything to me, but they won 45-15, and 15-yard penalty didn't really make much of a difference. But it's just like you said, it's that double standardness.
Did he get fined at all? I heard something. He was.
I'm just reading from the Vox newspaper, and they have nothing to say about any kind of financial.
Any other kind of reprimand.
Nothing at all.
In any case, the point still stands that he was punished in one form or another.
Okay, sorry. The NFL has admitted that the referee was wrong to penalise Abdullah.
Okay, good.
So the NFL has recognised that that's the governing body, the kind of like the FIFA of football, but NFL or mirror. I'm completely clueless when it comes to NFL. I have no idea, but
same
NFL,
here, even
I'm
when
assuming
it comes to football.
Normal football.
So that's interesting. It's a good story. It's a good story.
We can make this the first football free cancel.
Yeah.
So anybody that doesn't like football can call in.
Yeah.
And take part in the show
and listen to
Football Free Zone. I know there's some die-hard Manchester United fans out there.
Let them call in, and I'll give them a good earful, inshallah. I'm joking. If you really like your football, keep it to yourself. So to continue. Obviously we only run that story because of the treatment that this Muslim player was getting in comparison to his white Christian. His counterparts, and that's really sad to see that this is still happening. And not forgetting to mention, this is also in the backdrop of we've covered that before as well. It's Ferguson is still raging out there, and there's been some recent developments with that. Apparently, a police officer has been shot. People are getting arrested for walking on the road. Basically, there's some sort of special kind of martial law type on their curfew that if you walk on the actual road where cars go, then you get arrested, basically.
Hold on, wasn't this walking on the side something that happened during the slave trade day?
Yeah, it very much looked like that. When the picture showed up, I've been looking at some of the imagery, and it just looks like black people all being hustled onto the pavement saying, you walk there. Okay, white man walks everywhere else.
Yeah, black man is not allowed on the bus.
That's it. That's basically it. It looked like that to me. I know there's a lot of white folks who, respect to them, hats off to them. They joined the American fellows who happen to be African Americans in these protests as well. Okay, but this is happening right now in America, while they are going to teach morals and take them all other people across the world. The sickening hypocrisy of it is really gut-wrenching and bile-inducing. Right, we're going to quickly go to the New Statesman here. Okay, before we do, brothers and sisters, our number is 07477 080 248. That's 07477 080 248. After the New Statesman and another article from, I'm just going to read the headlines really, from The Guardian, we might go on a short break. Is that okay, Mr. Producer? Give our listeners...
I was actually going to say, let's call it a wrap.
You want to call it a wrap? I've got like 15 other articles lined up here. What is happening to you?
I'm actually...
I thought you were going to be fighting my corner here. Okay, look, if we do want to call it a wrap, yeah, that's not a problem.
If we get a text or a call, then we'll carry on. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds to me. What have you got? You had a couple of other ones, the interesting ones, that because they were... sometimes it's just all political, and I don't want it to be always political. You mentioned something earlier before we went on air.
I was just talking about the Newsnight. They've changed the guy.
They changed the guy?
Yeah, the main presenter of Newsnight. They've changed him. They got the guy from Dragon's Den on.
Who's the guy from Newsnight?
I don't even know what the name is. But anyway, that's just me ranting about my Newsnight.
Is it Jon Snow? Jon Snow?
No, the guy
Jeremy Paxman. That's not Newsnight.
Yeah, that is.
I'm guessing anyway, names here. I'm not sure who they are.
I'll find
There's
out.
There's another guy.
If somebody can text in the details.
Yeah. What do you think?
I have no idea. I'm just going by the articles.
And who's the guy from Dragon's Den that got?
I'm just trying to get him.
Because I can. Why would that? There's a coloured guy on Dragon's Den. I don't even know his name, but there's a Theo, but they're not even on Dragon's Den anymore. This is like many years ago when I watched a few episodes. So I mean, anyways, that said, there's another big story that's in the Bangladesh right now. In Bangladesh, it's been in the news quite right now because there's apparently a British Bangladeshi from London who's gone out to Bangladesh, allegedly, to recruit people from Bangladesh to go and join ISIS. Now, he's actually said a variety of, he's put out a complete denial. He said this is completely false. He was out there on purely family business, okay? He's got some over land and property over there, He's gone out reason. And he's never been to Syria, that's been one of the allegations against him. He's never been to Syria. He said, I've been to Turkey, to the border of Syria, where I've delivered humanitarian aid. I don't deny. I was stopped in the UK when I came back with the rest of my colleagues and volunteers and aid workers, and we explained ourselves. They checked it up and they all checked out. So we weren't stopped by the UK authorities. Someone has dropped a spook story on him in Bangladesh, and we know how Bangladesh loves to hate Islamists, and they've picked him up. They've done a raid on his home over there, and I just found it shocking that apparently they've not even asked him any questions like, where were you, did you have any involvement, do you deny, or anything like that. They came to him, they forced him to sign a statement that he didn't even know, and you think, why would you do that? In the UK it's a different world. You can maybe say you don't force it. How can you sign a statement? Here, over there rather, in Bangladesh, it's a different ball game. You see, what normally happens is we've just got reports today that they've shaved his beard, and he's very sick right now. We've heard other reports from other detainees of horrible treatment at the hands of the police over there. So yes, he does. There's good reason why he may have been easily coerced into signing a statement that he doesn't even know, the contents of. Somebody's dropped in a message. Do you have that message, Mr. Producer? Do you want to read that? I've got it here. Yeah, you want me to read that, and you want to give your views?
Fire away.
Well, it says here, a question's come in. Salam, brothers. What is your view on the ISIS group being US agents? In my view, they have so far served all the US interests. Well, that's a very good question. And it was actually what we were talking about a moment ago. I really think that, although it's not related to the topic of Bangladesh, how do I want to say this? It's a can of worms. Why is it a can of worms? I don't think it's the right time to be talking about ISIS. It's not an opportune moment to be talking about ISIS. ISIS is just the excuse of the US and her allies in the UK. Here as well, including those in Europe and the rest of the world, including the Arab nations. So ISIS should no longer be the focus. We should have learned by now that really it's nothing to do with ISIS. And that kind of also answers your question that they've only been serving the US agenda. I suppose you mean to say that, well, because of what they did, the US have now gone in to Syria and done what they've done. Well, to be honest with you, it's not really ISIS that they're bombing out there only. They are bombing a variety of different groups and also a lot of civilians. And I have actually some reports of the civilians, deaths and casualties reported from some of the health ministries in Syria. Okay, civilians are being killed. Okay, the American authorities do deny that. So really, I think the matter and the issue should be anything to do with ISIS anymore. The Muslim community and our leaders and our scholars need to move on from ISIS, okay? When there was a time when you could talk to them or talk about them, talk whether you want to talk against them even, there was a time when you could do that. But a question could arise is, those people that did speak about ISIS over and over and made them out to be the bogeymans that they purported them to be, do you think these people here in the UK, in America, these Muslims and these leaders, share some of the responsibility in now giving the green light to the American authorities to have started this bombing campaign against Syrian revolution? Okay, the one that is fighting for their life and their freedom against. We think we have some blood on our hands for having constantly banged on about ISIS being the problem, ISIS this, ISIS that, if they may well be, okay, or may not. Do you think we share some of that responsibility here? Those of us who've been writing these statements and making these, condemnation, coordinated, letters of condemnation. You think we may have given the license that the US and the UK needed to think, well, it looks like everybody hates ISIS, even these Muslims, even the hardcore Muslims, even these so-called conservative radicals hate ISIS. So let's go out there and use that as an excuse to kill Muslims in general in Syria. Let's go and help Assad achieve his goal, and that is down the revolution for freedom, the revolution for humanity, for justice, for peace, and the revolution to overthrow the murderous dictator Bashar al-Assad, even referred to as such in, like, the Daily Mirror, shockingly enough. So, on the question of ISIS, are they US agents? I don't think they are US agents. There's no credible evidence or proof that ISIS are US agents. Really only one report has come out about that, and they all come from Iranian sources. Iran is the, ideological and natural enemy of Sunnah and the Sunnis, not just ISIS, all Sunnis in general. And so it would be in their interest to support their brother in blood and religion, Assad, to say that ISIS is actually made up of American agents and so on and so forth. No credible proof whatsoever.
Isn't there a picture going around where they've got the picture of the leader, Baghdadi, and they're saying that it's him sitting next to John Carter and all that kind of stuff?
Nah, that's not even him, and it's been refuted easily that those are not him. Those are from other rebel groups. It doesn't even look like him. That's I've seen these pictures. It doesn't even look cheap shots. The usual ones. They've got some guy who looks a little bit Middle Eastern. He's probably in a nightclub, and they're saying, "Oh, this is the guy." When they did stuff like that, these are all fake stories, guys. Don't believe this. But rubbish.
The thing is, these kind of stunts. What does it prove?
Well, they actually. That's what I'm saying. If they wanted to make a credible argument that ISIS are a product of the US, intelligence,
they could have done so.
But when they discredited their own argument by doing these cheap tactics, which eventually makes me that's just stupid. That's ridiculous. That's not true. Everybody knows that. Look, that's not him. That's why it's not true. It's not because I love ISIS. Look, that's not him. Clearly, that is not him. And the three pictures they showed, all three of them are different guys. If it was the same guy in all three pictures, I'd say, okay, there's some consistency here. But in all of the pictures that they've shown, they're actually different men. All of them different to one another. I wouldn't know that they look similar at all. Okay? US agents, ISIS? No, I don't think so. Have in their past they done things that have only served the Assad regime and maybe by extension the US agenda? Possibly yes, they may well have. They did. The whole infighting. Should it be all put squarely to ISIS? You can put it, quite a lot of it, in ISIS's court. But the infighting, generally speaking, between all the rebel groups strengthened Assad, that's for sure. And ISIS did play a huge role in that, there's no denying it. But others also played in, other groups also did the same. And it's too complicated a matter for us it's outside of the scope of the Security Council to discuss. But again, I want to finish on that point, which is what I started with in answering that question. I certainly don't think ISIS is the issue now. Brothers and sisters, we need to realize if we keep on banging on about ISIS, then we keep, supporting, really, essentially, inadvertently, we're saying that what the US is doing in Syria right now, a new war, like they did with Iraq. They went to Syria even faster. Why? Because they didn't need to convince anybody about weapons of mass destruction. They just had to say the word ISIS, and everybody said, yeah, we hate those monsters. Go blow them to bits. And that's exactly what we Muslims have been saying to them, whether we use those words or not. Why were we so naive to think that, saying we should have made statements and said, look, we do disagree with them. We have our own reasons for disagreeing with them. And those are religious reasons, Islamic reasons, reasons that you have no respect for, reasons that you non-Muslims, in government, those non-Muslims, by the way, not every non-Muslim, there are some very decent non-Muslims out there, many of them, who make these arguments themselves, actually, by the way, these non-Muslims. So we're talking about the ones who want to bomb the Muslim world and keep killing Muslims. Those guys are using our sentiment, our anti-ISIS sentiment, in their favor. And we played straight into their hand. And I saw this one coming. We said, this is what's going to happen. They're going to go in there. They just need you guys to say so. And we've been saying it day in, day out. Go take them out. And you know how it is. They don't go there. They say, we're going to go for Osama bin Laden. One guy. We're going to go to Afghanistan. One guy. 11 years. And they still people dying in Afghanistan because of what they've done. Not Osama bin Laden. And him even, they said they got him. There's still people dying. There's still people fighting. Still American, military influence in Afghanistan. So I hope that really answers the question. Let's stop making this thing about ISIS. We should have learned our lesson by now that when we're talking this way, our governments here in the UK and the US will just use that as an excuse to say, thank you, Uncle Tom. That's all I needed to hear. Now let's go bomb the hell out of your people. That's basically what they did, what we done.
Just a quick update. The Newsnight presenter's name is Evan Davis.
Evan Davis, the new guy or
the new guy?
I'm sorry, I'm not following these. What is it? The Dragon's Den. I've not heard of him before. I know the old guys like Duncan Bannatyne. I mean, I don't mean he's old, although he is quite old. I mean, like the old dragons, so to speak, basically. So what happened? Why is that? Are there other people talking about that right now?
Yeah, everyone's asking questions about it, saying they prefer the old guy.
Do you mean the host? Because there used to be this guy who hosted Dragon Den. Are you saying he got changed?
No, the presenter of
Newsnight. Sorry, that's what it says. I'm totally lost the plot here.
But anyway, I mean, there is another topic. I think probably we need to get some more. Not just wrap up. We just need to get some more information, maybe on next week's show. The crisis in Hong Kong at the moment.
Yes, this is quite big as well.
It's very big. It's developing.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not really.
It's developing at the moment. It's riots have just started. Tear gas has been already fired into crowds at the moment. Major roads have been blocked. Maybe we should make that a feature for next week's show, where we get a little bit more info. Maybe get some information from our special guests calling in next week.
Let me tell you about next week's show. And we will again mention this at the end of the show. Next week's going to be a special show again, as we do quite frequently on the Security Council. We're going to have a special guest on the line, Brother Asad Beg. Many of you have heard of Brother Asad Beg. He is a freelance journalist, and he's done extensive work in the Middle East and in Africa and many parts of Asia, ranging from the Central African Republic, where a lot of the Muslim genocide is taking place there. He's also been to regions like Syria and other parts of the Middle East, and he's been to Pakistan, of course, and the tribal region. So he speaks multi different languages. He's done quite a lot of work for BBC in the past as well, and is currently working for an international news agency. So he's got extensive experience, and he's very active on Twitter as well, by the way. He's one of those guys you can tweet at, and he will actually respond. He's not going to ignore you. He's not become so big, for his own self, in the sense that he's a celebrity. He's got a lot of followers, don't get me wrong, a lot of followers, but he's still, down to earth. And if you contact him, he's actually active on Twitter. He will, reply and stuff like that. So he's agreed, inshallah, to come and speak on our program next week, Tuesday, at 10:15. When our program starts at 10, we roll the intro, and then he comes on at 10:15, inshallah, to talk about the issue in Syria. Because as far as we can see, this matter of Syria is not going away. So inshallah, he will give us a more journalistic angle on his experience and his reporting, what the information that he's got over the this whole term of the conflict.
Do you think Brother Assad would have some knowledge on the hashtag bend something? What's it called?
Bendgate.
That's something that needs to be talked about.
Bendgate. Oh my days! I'm surprised you brought that up. I'm thinking, you've censored me from talking about anything related to it.
This is Café Ikhwan. This is Café Ikhwan.
Tonight's Café Ikhwan. That's right. We got rid of the.
That's how we roll here.
Yeah, Bendgate. Hashtag Bendgate. Anyone know what Bendgate is? Or I know everything about Bendgate, so don't you get me all warmed up on Bendgate, okay? If you know anything about Bendgate, hashtag Bendgate, okay? And if you want to know, just hashtag it on your, check the hashtag out on Twitter, and you'll see what we're talking about when it comes to Bendgate.
So do we get a segment for this hashtag Bendgate?
We need to definitely have our own tech exclusive show. I know Brother Khabbab and Brother Zain, who are, quite antagonistic towards all things tech. Despite coming on a internet radio station to talk to the world, they've been saying that we need our own tech, slot. But if you want to talk about it today, go throw it in the works. What can you tell us about Bendgate? What exactly is Bendgate? Well, I know obviously a lot of you brothers and sisters are mad about your iPhones. You've all been queuing up homeless for the last 2 weeks outside the Apple store. Where is it? In Stratford, and what's the main one in central London? I keep forgetting it. Regent Street, is it?
Yeah,
I'm guessing. Yeah. So you guys all been camping there with your umbrellas and your cardboard boxes, drinking hot coffee to survive. I feel sorry for you guys, but I mean, you love your iPhones, and that's what you guys have been doing. But this iPhone is wafer thin. And yes, respect to Apple for making it that thin, definitely. I'm not one of those blind guys. Well,
really?
There's been some sort of there's a disadvantage for it to being that thin. And that is the outcome, the result is Bendgate. A lot of people have been complaining that within the first 2 days of owning their device, after just leaving it in their front pocket of their jeans, their Apple device has been bending. Dun 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 dun. That's right. The lovely £700 note.
Hold on. Stop.
£630.
Stop press. Hold on. The phone is made out of aluminium. Am I correct?
Aluminum, according to Apple.
Sorry, aluminium. So how dare you say it bends?
Aluminum bends. Aluminium. What's going on here?
No, that
aluminium bends.
It bends to a
and it stays bent. That's the problem.
No, but the whole point.
No pun intended. iPhone guys.
iPhone was
Android phones are straight.
It was big when it came out with its unibody, solid state body. The rigidness of it. It was renowned for it, and now you're telling me that an iPhone 6 comes out. Is this the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 6 Plus?
To be fair, it's mostly, it's probably all of it is just the iPhone 6 Plus. It's the larger device, and it being that thin and that big at the same time with a larger footprint, you can imagine you can easily actually bend something like that. But that's a design flaw. If those people are right, complaining that their iPhones are getting curved, twisted, it's not like a horrible twist, like it looks like some sort of I don't know, pretzel or something like that. It doesn't look like that bad, but it doesn't sit flush against a flat table surface, for example. And that's the problem. You can press on one end and the other end of the iPhone would stick up into the air. It will rock a bit on the table. So, so much stuff has been happening. So much hilarious Bendgate tweets have been coming out. I think Samsung, LG, even BlackBerry have all kind of weighed in and taken advantage of this and saying how their devices don't bend. Even KitKat made a joke. They said, "Take a break. We break. We don't bend." something along those lines. So they used the hashtag BendGate. So some hilarious things out there.
I mean, just because it bends, are they going to be giving like a refund on it?
Well, this is also in the news that Apple is saying that you can't actually bend it. They're denying that you can bend it, just in your pocket. That you can, even though customers have complained, their customers have complained. They're saying if it does happen, then it's out of warranty. What they'll do is, to be more precise, they're saying bring it into the lab and we'll investigate if you've actually bent it on purpose or if it bent on its own. Depending on the outcome of that investigation, that forensic exam on your iPhone 6 Plus, then we will probably issue you with a refund.
Basically, those who bought the iPhone 6 Plus, they have that information where with a slight bit of pressure, the phone will bend, but they cannot get a refund, nor can they.
No, if you bend it yourself, basically Apple is saying if you guys have bent it, then we ain't going to give you no refund.
Well, I mean, how will they tell the difference? Whether it bends it,
that's the whole debate, isn't it? That's where it's all falling apart, because how are you going to know if you bent it yourself or if it's bent in your pocket?
It's this whole iSlave mentality. I mean, iSlave, iTunes, iPod, that.
There's blind followers in every camp, I guess. Even some fandroids. They love Samsung now.
Yeah, but
it's become like the new iPhone.
At least with that fandroids, they're a little bit more open-minded.
It's true.
Any fandroid out there, they will have an Apple device.
Yeah,
just the way you are.
Some people call me fandroids, and even yourself.
Yes,
I know you've got a Galaxy, one of the big ones, the Notes. Also, you can't call it big anymore because the iPhone is as big as yours, or bigger actually in some way. But you've got an iPad.
I'm actually using an iPad right now to get
right
the articles out.
That's right.
I mean, the only good thing about this is the actual browser experience is better than the
smoother, more responsive.
The Samsung Galaxy ones.
They're all catching up, though. They're all catching up. Probably as good. But I mean, they're make good looking devices. But if your product is good looking but bends, can't stand up straight, then is that a good product? Are you that vain that it's all about how good the device looks or the label that's on the back of the device?
But you know what? I mean, some people they are that vain. They want it for that
just to say that it's an Apple device. I've got an Apple.
It's another white, silver, shiny device on my table, along with the other white, shiny devices that I never use.
Yeah, but the funniest thing is that because everyone's got one, it's become like a chav item. Everyone's got one. Even little kids in school have got iPhones and stuff like that. The prestige or the privilege of having an iPhone no longer, the celebrities have got iPhones and stuff like that. Everybody, they throw me these kind of nonsense arguments, the iPhone guys. And but now I look around me, everyone has got an iPhone. Even people who don't even use any of its smart features have got iPhones, simply because it's a fashionable thing to have. It's what society tells you that if you don't get, you are not part of mainstream society, dude. You got left behind. That's basically what it means, and that's why a lot of people feel actually pressured. They don't realize it. They keep telling themselves that no, it's just a brilliant device, and that's why I get it. A lot of people buy iPhones for that reason. Yes, it's a good device, but a lot of people, a huge number of people, because you don't see that kind of queuing up at every Samsung store dotted around the UK or in Korea or wherever. You don't see that. This kind of cult, and actually BBC has done some documentaries on that, the cult mentality behind those who buy products like Apple. But
on this one, I'm not just going to point the finger on Apple, because I mean, even when you have bank holiday sales in Next and all that kind of shopping places, you have people coming outside as well. So I won't say it's just an Apple cult thing.
This is what they said. Actually, this is Apple's official statement. They said they made a statement in 2 days, I think, or in 4 days of having released the iPhone to the public, right? In 4 days after they got complaints, they said, we've only had 9 people officially complain to our stores that their iPhones are getting bent. I.e., they're trying to make the point that so few people are actually suffering from this problem. It's not a widespread issue. I'm thinking to myself, hold on, guys. You guys are selling 10 million devices. You broke your last year's record, okay, in the States anyway. That's a huge number of devices. And just in 4 days, you've already got 9 complaints in your store. 4 days, all right? imagine the whole duration of the 12-month contract or the 24-month contract that these people have this phone. You're going to get a lot more complaints in 4. If just in 9 complaints. If you get in 9 complaints in just 4 days, you're going to have a headache on your hands. Okay, in just a couple of months' time, that 9 will, just multiply at an enormous rate.
It's with anything you get. I mean,
you do the math, guys. 4 days, 9 people. How many days in a month? You just do the math.
I mean, you don't even need to do the math. I mean, whenever you buy a new product, especially an Apple product, you will take extra care.
I've seen reputable organizations. This is what what you said about Android. There's guys on Android Central, right? Just like there are other sites like Verge and Pocket Lint and Pocket Now and different kind of 9 to 5 Mac, different types of websites out there covering tech, mobile tech, right? Android Central was one of their podcasts I watched the other day. One of their guys actually went and bought the iPhone 6 Plus, and because there's nothing wrong with buying one. You might actually like the device. You might get it from members of your family, or you just like the device. Okay, so he went and bought one, and his one bent, and he said, "Look, I'm not one of those 9 guys who went and complained to Apple Store. Do you know why? Because a huge number of people in America, just like in the UK, I would say even more so in America, don't buy their phones directly from the shop. They buy it from contracts, from EE or from 3 or from Vodafone or whoever, right?
More affordable.
Yeah, that's lot more affordable. You pay monthly. Most people actually buy their phones like that. How many people do you actually know actually goes to the shop and says, give me a £700 phone or a £500 phone? Very few people do that. And those are the hardcore guys queuing outside Apple that do that. Okay, so the 9 people that they've referred to only are the ones from that small segment of the customer base who go and buy the phone outright from their store, from the Apple store. That means there's probably a much bigger number, a huge number of people who have got the same issue. And the Android guy who was on the podcast, he was saying, I did report the problem, but I did not report it to Apple because I reported it to my network, Verizon. That's who I got my iPhone from. And naturally you complain to the people who you got your phone from. Even if you went to Apple, they'd say, no, you got your phone from those guys, go complain to them, they'll sort it out for you, they'll give you a replacement or not. So Bengate,
we need to have our own tech show.
Definitely.
If brothers and sisters is texting and give us your support, then that will kind of spur us on to get our own show up and running.
That's right. We need a dedicated show. I know there's a lot of you fans out there, who very riled up about this, and you love your iDevices, with passion.
Die hard.
Yeah, die hard.
iSlaves.
No. You're proper hardcore on them,
No, I don't think I'm hardcore. I mean, I'm a Fandroid. iSlave and iSlave. I mean,
Yeah. If you want to see these wars taking place on air live on Middle Path Radio, then let's go at it, inshallah. And if you guys are really confident, you think you want to come into the studio, okay, and we'll give you a special seat right here just to critique and to respond to these so-called baseless allegations of yours. You can talk about lag, Android lag. You can talk about the famous F word. Not the other F word. We're talking about fragmentation. You boys, you love your fragmentation argument, okay? Android is fragmented. Nobody even understands what you're talking about. But let's have your argument. Bring it on. We'll bring you in the studio. Let's have it,
Okay, just to divert us away from the whole eye issue, there's an article. Yeah, the Bengate. There's an article I wanted to read out, but I just couldn't find it. But alhamdulillah, I found it now.
Okay.
It's a very simple one. It's a very quick one. But the headline reads, it's in the Middle East Monitor.
Okay.
It says, 3 Israeli soldiers committed suicide after Israel war on Gaza.
Oh,
okay.
Poor souls.
The Israeli military police have opened up an investigation after 3 members of the elite military unit committed suicide, sources revealed yesterday.
These are the toughest and the hardest. These are the toughest
and the roughest and the maddest and the baddest and the
most
suicidalist soldiers out there.
I'm laughing at the terminology, the word suicidalist. Not that they committed suicide. I should shed a tear, really. Except my eyes are dry.
The soldiers from the Givati Brigade who took part in the ground operation.
The Qassam Brigade, did you say?
The Givati.
Oh, so there's a equivalent of the Qassam Brigade in the Israeli version.
Yes, Israeli.
But nobody knows about that. Okay.
Who took part in the ground operation during the recent assault, committed suicide after the Israeli war on Gaza ended. Mm-hmm. According to the Israeli daily Maravi, the 3 cases in all 3 cases, Bullets from personal guns caused the deaths to the soldiers shot themselves on army bases along the borders of Gaza Strip.
Wow.
All 3 cases were similar, the newspaper said, as the personal guns were found beside the dead soldiers, and it is hoped that the investigation will reveal how the soldiers committed suicide. The newspaper reports that the senior psychiatric military officer is saying that only 8 soldiers committed suicide last year, the lowest number since the establishment of the Israeli
that's the lowest
army.
number?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is something which is kind
so
of...
what's the regular average number or the high number?
Well, this just actually highlights, okay, right, that, you know...
They're human beings.
They're human beings, and, you know...
and every human being has
anybody
got
that's
conscience.
got a heart, any human that has a heart, you know, they would automatically realize that what's happening or what's happened is just so unjust. And, you know, I mean,
there's only so much your blind following your nationalism can lead you to do. And once you're responsible for committing atrocities like killing children, deliberately targeting hospitals, it's a hospital. It must
dawn on you for the rest of life. Imagine, imagine
you
kill a 13 or
4-year-old
child because he just happened to just crawl across the road and you use him as a target practice, and that's what's happening.
I mean that's actually military practice over there. They say, if he is and they killed people. Other than an old lady, a pensioner lady, was crawling injured towards them for help, and it's military protocol in Israel. Okay, let's say jihadist protocol in Israel, okay, to shoot that person, and what is it? Double tap or something like that, and then shoot again to make sure that the person is properly dead, okay, at point blank.
Well, so, I mean, these kind of deaths will take a toll. I mean, no matter how much of an elite or a baddest or a hard nut you may be.
Not very elite after that, now are you?
Well, there you go. But I mean, if this is just 3 of the elite of the elite of the elite, and is resulted in them suicide, imagine what's happening to the psychological effect of the rest of the soldiers. That's my cynical
side. And on the the positive side, I mean, is there a positive side to somebody dying? But probably not. But there is something to be, as you said, to be learnt here, that human beings deep down, they have what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, which is that fitrah state, that level of ability to have conscience, that natural ability to discern between right and wrong, to have that some sense of a moral compass in them. And when you're doing those kinds of things day in, day out against your own wishes, a lot of them, they may be in the elite groups, and yes, you're not blameworthy. You were definitely there. You knew what you were getting involved with, okay, but these things definitely take a toll on you. But am I supposed to feel sorry for them as opposed to the people that they've killed? I don't think so. No. I'm not really feeling very sorry for them.
Sorry,
for crimes like that, obviously a lot of people will say they ought to be executed in a court of law anyway, but they've taken their own lives. Which we know suicide is not even allowed and permissible in Islam. So moving on from that, there is one lady, if I can even call her that, this monster of a witch. She is in the New Statesman, and she's also in the Guardian for 2 different reasons. Okay, one is Theresa May, I'm talking about, by the way. She plans that new powers should be introduced to ban extremists, she says, from TV appearances. That's Theresa May. So check this out, guys, because she's making it illegal for even Muslims to come on TV or to even go speak at any event, let alone it be being televised. Let's read the article. Notice I use the word extremist interchangeably with Muslim, because unfortunately these policies really only affect just Muslims, and any Muslim for that matter. We've seen Muslims of different persuasions subject to these draconian laws and being criminalized, often facing lengthy prison sentences at best, and at worst being deported abroad and being tortured in some sort of black site that nobody even knows about. So it says here, radical Islamist extremists and neo-Nazis could be banned from making public appearances, including on television, under a gagging order proposed by the Conservatives, with echoes of the broadcast ban that once applied by the voice of Gerry Adams. Theresa May will announce the measure as part of a widely drawn counter-extremism strategy that is intended to catch so-called hate preachers such as Mr. Chowdhury, who was released on bail last week after being arrested on suspicion of encouraging terrorism. You got something to add there?
Democracy at its finest.
That's it. It says here, the extremist ASBOs. They are reminiscent of the 1980s broadcasting ban under which Sinn Féin spokesmen such as Gerry Adams was banned from the airwaves. Okay, actors were used to voice the words of Republicans and others with the links to paramilitary groups in news report. This is democracy and freedom. Freedom of expression. Freedom of speech at its best. Now you guys go and put that in your pipe and smoke it, if I was to use that expression loosely. Yeah, I mean, those people believe in this nonsense about democracy and freedom. I mean, what a laugh. What a joke. I mean, we guys, you know, not even our previous generation of our people, they've seen the same dirty tactics in their own countries. That's why our grandfathers and our parents came to this country, because of a lot of them sought political asylum here, thinking that it's a better place here, that they would be afforded these freedoms that their countries are not affording them. Well, guess what? It's the same story right here, home in the UK. These ASBOs are coming out. You're going to be banned for even talking, opening your mouth. Okay, the Home Secretary's new orders would be aimed at those who undertake activities for the purpose of overthrowing democracy. Now, what could be an activity that would overthrow a democracy? Well, maybe what we just said could be seen as activity for the purpose of overthrowing a democracy such as the UK. So basically, if you criticize the UK government, then you could be trying to overthrow democracy here, and therefore be, could go anywhere, from prison to a black site like Camp X-Ray or Diego Garcia or any of those other unknown X sites. Okay, so that's her in the I think, what is this? This is the New Statesman, is it? No, this was the Guardian actually. All right, so. It says here, the strategy is based on proposals that came out of David Cameron's extremism working party, set up following the murder of Lee Rigby in May last year. The move to ban extremist but non-violent groups, they even admit that these are non-violent groups, and to introduce extremist ASBOs were blocked by the Liberal Democrats on freedom of speech grounds. Wow. Surprised. And so were not announced when Cameron proposed measures to tackle British jihadists travelling to Syria. Notice how the Israeli jihadists that travelled to Israel were not mentioned here. Okay, so that's that story. She's also in the news for another reason. I'm trying to find the exact article for that. But let's bring in something a little bit more humorous, because today we've just learnt from the very prestigious BBC that intelligence agencies, anti-terror organizations, departments in the government are hunting down terrorists by monitoring the Suez. That's right, you heard me right. Not the Suez in Egypt. Nope, the Suez here in the UK and in other parts of the world. So it says here in BBC that new technology, I mean, you'd think these guys are so obsessed with the Muslims that they're even seeing value in our sewage waste. That is really flattering to know that they are inspecting. They got a fantastic job. They must feel it's like a rewarding job. They go to sleep at night. I don't want to go down there. What they're inspecting, God knows. They're monitoring the Suez. I don't know. Are there Teenage Mutant Ninja terrorists out there lurking in the Suez with Splinter, Leonardo, and Michelangelo? Whatever guys. Yeah, that's probably what's happening now. We need to do that. So new technology allows security services to analyze the contents of the Suez to discover where people are making their homemade bombs. Not in the toilet, I can tell you that much. Not that I would know a lot about homemade bombs. The new system is being tested in Sweden and will make it possible to check for the substances which may be byproducts of bomb making. Many, including those in Boston, London and Madrid, have been the result of homegrown terrorism, and this could help reduce the risks of more bombings. Okay, so there's that story. Interesting to see how the Europeans are taking a peculiar interest in the sewage of Muslim communities in their countries. Okay, we just want to finish on that London cab driver, the Bengali brother, who is currently in custody in Bangladesh. There is genuine fear, actually. He's alleged of being an agent for ISIS. Okay, he categorically denies all of this. It's completely false. It's utter rubbish. There's no proof, no evidence whatsoever of him having even been to Syria or having any contact with those types of people. But the current concern right now is he may be facing some serious mistreatment in the custody of the police. It is well known in Bangladesh that detainees don't get treated fairly or even humanely. And, we wonder what the British government will be doing, the consulate or the High Commission, what they exactly will be doing to help this detainee. Sure, he's not being threatened with beheading, but he is still a Briton, much like Alan Henning and, was it David Haynes? Isn't he English? Wasn't he British? Yeah, I think he was British as well. Mm-hmm. So, I think, we'd like to see some sort of parity here between some bad treatment of a prisoner, as it were, to use that term loosely. Okay, so he's been subjected to some very serious mistreatment. I want to see, what happens, what the British government do, if they take any responsibility at all. Or are they just thinking, no, that guy's just a Bangladeshi guy, he's not British at all. You do with him as you please. I won't be surprised, if I'm honest with you. This is just conjecture, by the way. I won't be surprised. It's conjecture based on past facts, shall we put it that way, in history, with what happened in Libya, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if the British government were the ones who actually ordered his arrest in Bangladesh.
Or it could be one of the things where the Bangladesh government just want a couple of more extra brownie points.
Yeah, that we are fighting this war against terrorism, just like you guys. We love you guys.
We've denounced the pillar of Islam. It's only right that we just accuse somebody of being, let's all take, why don't we take a bite at the ISIS pie as well?
Yeah, that's right. Get into the good books with America, or climb the good book. They're already in the good books. They just need to climb higher.
$2 million on the IMF World Loan Bank won't go astray.
Won't go astray. Exactly. So, that's really what's happening out there. So we're really concerned about those kinds of things. Interesting. You talked about the minister who mentioned that thing, and you just referred to it just now. Abdul Latif Siddiqui, who was accused of apostasy for having ridiculed one of the 5 pillars of Islam, a obligatory act of worship in the religion of Islam. Okay, I think a lot of non-Muslims even know about the 5 pillars of Islam, and the Hajj is something quite revered by what is it, billion people, 1.5 billion people across the world. A lot of people yearn and dream to go there. A lot of people cannot make it. It's a very spiritual journey. It's a very it's a journey that detoxes you of worldly sin and worldly strife. It's an extremely God-oriented experience. But this man's taken a very economic look at it and said basically it's a complete waste of money and
resources and
manpower and time. Stop wasting your time being a Muslim. Basically, religion's a bad idea. That's basically what he said. That's why the allegations of apostasy have been thrown at him. But in relation to that, much closer to home, actually, we have an interesting article. It's a blog piece again in Huffington Post, and it's one that's actually been promoted heavily by old friend Maggie and his best buddy Eddie from the Quilliam Foundation. But in this case, it's just really Maggie. No disrespect to you, mate. Eddie, you didn't have anything to do with this. Not that you disagree, though. He's been promoting this particular article by Fatima Imran Nazir. Sounds like a very Muslim lady. Probably a subject or the subject of a lot of Islamophobic hate, just for having her name Fatima Imran Nazir. But she's written this article. She said, to counter ISIS propaganda, it has to be about ISIS. Otherwise, really, it's really the in thing right now.
ISIS is a buzzword.
It's fashionable. Yeah, it's in right now. So let's make everything about ISIS. To counter ISIS propaganda, okay, let's stop treating the Quran as infallible. Now, I'm speaking to a Muslim audience here, right? Okay, I know you non-Muslims don't even believe in that. That's why, obviously, you're non-Muslim. That's the way things work. Okay, but Muslims believe in the Quran to be the word of God, and they do believe it to be infallible. That's one of the basic tenets of faith. Okay, and similar to the guy who ridiculed the concept, the religious obligation of Hajj, this lady here, much closer to home, has actually written similarly that we have to stop treating the Quran as infallible. Okay, and it's really strange. And she talks a lot about the prisoners, Stephen Sotlov and the others under ISIS. I think really just because her argument lacks the credence, she's just having to bolster the argument by bringing a lot of this ISIS kind of rhetoric in, just to get that support that people normally rush to give when there's condemnation of ISIS. So what went wrong? Well, she basically makes the whole argument that she says here, well, let me read. It says here, well-meaning Muslims, apparently, the good Muslim, the uncle, the good Muslim is a bad Muslim, according to these people. Well-meaning Muslims claim that these Islamists have simply misinterpreted the Quran. Again, let me read into that. That well-meaning Muslims claim that Islamists like ISIS have simply misinterpreted the Quran. However, Fatima asks, have they really misinterpreted the Quran? She says, as I wrote in a previous post, ISIS's interpretation of the Quran is a very plausible one. So she actually agrees with ISIS on the verses from the Quran. And this explains why ISIS has no trouble using the Quran as a recruiting tool. Even according to so-and-so person in the Muslim community, the very much mainstream and respected interpreter of the Quran, he says, fighting for the cause of truth is a duty for Muslims under a rightly guided Imam. The definition of truth and rightly guided Imam, unfortunately, is not that clear out. So for those of us who have been indoctrinated, this is how she describes it, those of us who have been indoctrinated, the Quran is God's literal and most perfect word to man, amen. The Quranic commands for true believers to wage war against oppressors and hypocrites can cause a tugging at the heartstrings. Still, plenty of Muslims have condemned ISIS while angrily claiming that they have misinterpreted the Quran to justify their barbarity. So she goes on to say that actually no, ISIS is not misinterpreting the Quran. The Quran is actually exactly how ISIS have presented it to you, and therefore the Quran is wrong because ISIS is obviously wrong. The Quran is wrong.
One of her colleagues had actually made a comment on that. It was just a two-liner comment.
Yeah.
Someone that they support her quite well, and she calls to be a controversy. Her name is Fatima something.
Yeah, that's her. This is the one? Fatima. Yeah, that's the one.
No, there's another one called Fatima as well.
There's probably more. Fatima. I forgot her second name.
Or something like that. She's called to be.
They're all coming out of the cracks, by the way.
She calls to be a load of controversy in Bangladesh.
I know who you're talking about. Yes. She is a self-proclaimed atheist, actually.
She actually said, just in two lines, she said, Quran is the theory.
She migrated to the UK because she claimed that her life was in danger after making those dangerous blasphemic comments. Yeah.
Well,
go on, carry on.
I mean, on her tweet, she actually, I remember that it was her tweet. She said a one-liner. She said, Quran is the theory and ISIS is the practice.
That's right.
Basically, that just sums up everything what she's saying. So basically, it's the same narrative coming from all of their mouthpieces.
Yeah.
Everybody just
even that lady, that woman who did blaspheme in the past, she's not gone as far as this lady, this Fatima here, who's gone on to say that treating the Quran as God's perfect and literal word to man is creating too much havoc. So, I mean, she's just literally just, thrown out the whole idea that this is God's word, basically. Only when the notions of Quranic infallibility and inerrancy are challenged will it be possible for believing Muslims to openly admit that, according to literalist interpretation at least, it just goes on a little rant about ISIS. But my point is, let's read that first liner again. Only when the notions of Quranic infallibility and inerrancy are challenged, basically when you challenge the idea that the Quran is God's word, that's only then will the will it be possible for believing Muslims to openly admit that ISIS get their material? My point is, how are you a believer if you've just challenged and disputed the very authenticity of the Quran? Why would you call yourself a believer?
I see as a wannabe Orientalist.
Would you like to give us a Security Council resolution, aka fatwa, on air?
I could do, but the nature of the Security Council, nobody's going to adhere to it, so there's no point, really, is there?
That's exactly how the UN works. You normally do a Security
Council.
So you might as well give out the fatwa that this is apostasy or this is some sort of disbelief or statement of blasphemy according to the Islamic rules and principles, Islamic creed. Okay, to challenge the idea that the Quran is infallible. You're more than welcome to do so, but don't lay claim that you are Muslim. That's why there are billions of non-Muslims out there. They all make that claim, and they have the choice to do so. They have every right to do so. Okay, they may be wrong in doing so, in their assertion, in my view. Okay, but they're allowed to do so. But then don't say, "Oh, you're a Muslim," and Muslims now have to say, "Well, we don't believe in God, or we don't believe in His work, His word, His book." Excuse me, combine those two words together into work. So that wouldn't work, because that's what being a Muslim means. That you have to believe in. You don't have to. That's what you actually. That's what you do believe in. You signed up to that. That's what you actually agree with. Ideologically in your heart, this is what you believe. That this is God's word. Every Muslim has a choice to have these views, but they then lose the right to claim that they're Muslim, because the very definition of a Muslim is the one who believes in the Quran and its infallibility. So there goes, another. Blasphemy is quite popular. As long as you mention ISIS along the way and some sort of extremism or terrorism, it's perfectly easy to go out there and criticize Hajj or...
is this a prerequisite to get funding?
In the past, now that's a good question, Mr. Producer. In the past, people used to get a lot of money for this kind of thing. They did it for financial gain, and I'd think, all right, if you're getting millions of dollars, I can see what the lure of blasphemy and condemning Muslim groups and Muslims in general, Islam, the religion itself. I can see why you'd be, drawn to that, attracted. There's a financial gain,
and you'd be set up for the rest of your life.
But these days,
so many of them.
I don't think they're getting any money, and if they're getting, I don't think they're getting any money. A lot of these people actually genuinely do these kind of things for free. They're that cheap these days. Informants and agents of the government have become that cheap.
I was reading.
They're volunteers, agents.
I was just reading an article on the 5 Pillars website, and basically there was a letter written to the government requesting a breakdown of how much money Quillian Foundation were in receipt of, and what was their job role for that. And it was big money,
huge sums,
huge. I think the last count I saw, this is going back from 2010. The last count I saw, from 160,000, it went up to 700 or 800,000.
I was going to say several hundred thousands of pounds.
Yes, and that's
I've seen those reports.
That's quite disturbing. That the fact that the government is willing to firstly give money to an organisation that doesn't really represent any form of.
That's my money and your money. Everybody likes to talk about scrounging, okay? And here you are, your government, our government, my government, throwing money at people who are just putting it in their pockets, okay? And they obviously don't represent the Muslim community. They don't really care about solving issues in the Muslim community.
They never. I hate to play, and I really dislike this terminology, but I hate to play devil's advocate here. But they never claim to be speaking for the Muslim community. They never have done.
Yeah, they've been kind of speaking from outside of the Muslim community.
So
that's why Majid Nawaz is actually the one promoting and tweeting this particular.
Have you seen how much he's got his own shows on BBC? Have you seen it? He's got his own shows on Newsnight. He's doing his own kind of thing. So.
Yeah, they're trying to make quite a celebrity out of him. He's supposed to be some sort of a former radical extremist. As far as I knew, he was just a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir, which isn't really an extremist group. And he was leafleting about the concept of Khilafah, calling for the Khilafah.
Underneath the current proposals from Theresa May about speaking up and getting arrested under the threat to democracy, handing out leaflet would probably be at the top of
overthrowing democracy.
Yes,
except in Egypt there was no and is no democracy.
That'd be like Guantanamo Bay, throw away the key.
Yeah, so that's probably why he's got such an excellent profile, that he was such a hardcore terrorist who's reformed himself, because he used to leaflet about the caliphate. Wow. Yeah, I think the guy is just a fraud, to be honest with you. Most people know him. He wasn't even that hardcore. Yes, he endured, terrible treatment inside the Egyptian prison, but that's rather telling as well. And I'm not happy about anybody who gets treated like that, regardless of whether you're practicing Muslim or even if you're not Muslim. Any human being who gets treated like that is unacceptable, completely condemnable. But my point is, do you think that kind of treatment, that kind of torture, has actually led him to do what he is doing today? It doesn't look like the the logical thing to be doing, a complete U-turn. You would think that most of these people who get treated in this way are probably people who just want to save their skin, and I'm not joking. This is, extreme forms of torture in prisons of Egypt, and you would say to them whatever they want to hear, just to say, breathe another, breath of air, just to survive and to get out, really. So if they said to you, sign and confess to being a terrorist and extremist, you would do that. And will you now go and join a program with our partners in the UK to talk about ISIS, and stuff like that, and talk against Islam in general, but call it radical Islam and militant Islam for disguise? Would you do that for us, Majid? If I was in his position, God forbid, astaghfirullah, and God, free all of our, innocent brothers who are in prison and being treated in this way. Okay, it's not something that would surprise me if that thought crossed my mind. Tell him, just say yes to him, get out there, even for a year or two, play that game that I'm reformed and stuff, and then disappear off the map, save my life, and then maybe he kind of bought into that in the end. So I reckon he's on one of those programs, one of those reform, get yourself out of jail card kind of projects, and he's one of the success stories. And they are openly trying these programs in prisons, not just in the UK, but especially in Saudi Arabia and many other parts of the Muslim world. We are coming very close to the end of our program. I know I've got a lot of articles actually, but I'm not going to go through them this week.
Let's have a roundup of the Django of the Week.
Django's of the Week.
We had started off with my nomination of the Abdul Latif Siddiqui.
That's right.
Then we have the guy who keeps saying Hamas.
What is that guy's name? Netanyahu.
Netanyahu.
Yeah, Hamas is ISIL and ISIL is Hamas, and it is not Islam, but it is militant Islam.
If anybody can do a better accent, please do call in.
Okay, all right. Who else do we have? I'm going to add Maggie in this, because Maggie's done a fantastic job of.
What about
showing
the
us
CNN news reporters?
They're good, but we don't even know them, to be honest with you. We had somebody else in the middle. We missed somewhere in the middle. Who do we have? So Majid Nawaz definitely makes the shortlist. There was somebody else. There was one other person. We talked about the taxi driver who is in prison in Bangladesh.
Amir.
We had the Qatari Amir, but he did a good job actually. So that's all right. 3 is good. Yeah, 3 is fine.
We'll start with 3.
Yeah, 3 is fine. And I'm warm towards Majid Nawaz on this one. I wanted to add Theresa May, to be honest with you, because she's very much the kind of politician who would approve.
I'm more kind of leaning towards. Imagine that we know he's gonna stumble in the coming weeks. Theresa May is gonna probably.
Theresa May has to be.
But she's gonna say something really, really silly.
The Django of the week. Why? Because look at her. This was a story I was going to talk about today.
But she.
Abu Qatada. She tried her best night and day, sweating her guts out. Okay, losing her hair and sleep. okay, being shamed in the UK repeatedly by the defense lawyers of Abu Qatada that the government had nothing on this guy. Okay, nothing. And she kept coming out in statements, we are going to go tough on these extremists. We are going to make sure that these go down in prison and in history. And we're going to be, leaving no room for extremists to operate in the UK. And Abu Qatada is the leader of them. And, I'm not quoting directly, by the way, but this is the kind of firebranding that she was doing on TV. And then guess what happened? They couldn't secure a single conviction against him in the UK. And then they sent him out to somewhere where they thought, okay, you want to play that game, we have rule of law here, quote unquote rule of law in the UK. Let's send you somewhere where you ran away from. Okay, where they send him? They send him to, where they send him? Jordan? Yeah, Jordan. They send him to Jordan. We know Jordan and many similar countries like Jordan, they torture people, and the British normally send them out there, like they did with what's his name? The guy from Benghazi, the brother who's Abdul Hakim Bil Hajj, who was suing the UK government when he himself got sent out there to be tortured by the Libyan government, by Gaddafi. And when they had the revolution, they broke out of prison and kicked this murderous, bloody dictator Gaddafi out. They stormed his office and they found official documents of him being sent from the UK by UK officials to Colonel Gaddafi for this kind of terrible treatment. So this kind of stuff does happen. It's very well known, and I think the UK government ain't even hiding behind it. They're pretending that they don't torture people. That's why I think Theresa May really got egg on her face, because when Abu Qatada got sent to Jordan, they tried him twice and they couldn't find him guilty on any of those charges. So he's come out of prison after how many years of being incarcerated? I think a good part of 10 to 11 years, I think, behind bars or house arrest, curfew and control orders and stuff like that. A life that were debilitating, conditions. And he's an innocent man. I think he was innocent all along.
I actually want to, as bad as it sounds,
Mr. Producer, listen to me. She's the kind of politician who will be the one who will say, let's go and inspect the poo-poo of these Muslim extremists, okay? We might find some clues in there. I bet she inspected Abu Qatada's and she still didn't find nothing in there.
They do it in prison, so it's not something new.
That's right.
They do it in prison. I mean, we know she's going to mess up next week, the coming weeks, okay, right? I think this needs to go to Mr. Abdul Latif Siddiqui, because
definitely
he just came out the blue. He was a nobody, still is a nobody. He's in America right now with his Prime Minister, making bold statements.
Also, no wonder he's making these statements in the US. That's how you skyrocket to fame in America.
No, that's
cuss Islam a little bit.
That's how you get immediate immunity,
recognition, and
immediate immunity, and immediate.
And then you say, look, they've called me an apostate. That means they're gonna kill me. I need American citizenship right now. Give me that blue passport. I want it right now.
The navy blue passport.
Give it to me. I'm an American now. Okay, I've come to the land of the free. I've criticized Islam, just like you wanted me to.
And I now do qualify it, and I'm here to give my allegiance.
That's right. That's exactly his plan.
ALS should get it.
ALS. Interesting pun. ALS. That was the ice bucket challenge.
Oh, talking about the ice bucket, very, very quickly. Have you seen the picture of George W.
ALS
Bush?
Gets it. Okay, ALS gets it. Okay, ALS is the Django of the week.
Have you seen the ice bucket clip picture of George W. Bush with his wife pouring the bucket of ice over him?
No, sir, I did not.
Do you know what?
I forgot about this guy.
The irony of it is, right?
I thought he was a fugitive.
The look on his face, right? Somebody wrote a caption saying, the impression people got when he used to waterboard the Guantanamo Bay inmates. So the irony of it.
Yes, it's quite powerful irony.
Absolutely.
Actually. The impression that he got, okay.
The look on his face was the same impression that when he was in government and when he okayed the waterboarding on the Guantanamo Bay detainees.
And they did that apparently. We've reports here, and we actually covered it, that they've been doing that to certain individual detainees 187 times. And they'd have a doctor by the side where they push the detainee death to the point of death. Just before dying, the doctor say, okay, he's about to die now. You can stop drowning him. Stop him. He might die. So that's the kind of that the American government is used to. So I laugh in my head when I'm thinking they're looking at China and they're talking about ethics and humanitarian human rights abuse and stuff like that. America and China you guys are cut from the same cloth. Okay, so no wonder China takes no lecturing from these people, and America has lost all its credibility in the face of all of these leaks that are proving. And some of these are not even leaks; these are well documented by themselves, and they are disclosing some of this information. So Django of the Week goes to Abdul Latif Siddiqui, the man who thought that the obligation to perform your religious duty of Hajj was a complete waste of money and time and resources. My friend, you are Django of the Week.
Congratulations.
And we'll see you in America in your new what's
new
it
abode.
Called? What do they call them? Those luxury villas, and perhaps on your yacht, American yacht, called the what would you call that? The Statue of Liberty. Yeah, we'll see you out there, mate. Have a good American life now. If you've got any tips for us on how to get an American citizenship, drop us a tweet or an email. Okay, Abdul Latif, if you're listening, mate, nice strategy, but I think you may have sold your hereafter for the cheap price of this dunya. Okay, so beware, buddy, beware. This is Middle Path Radio. You are listening to the Security Council. This is the end. We'll give you a quick heads up on next week. Next week's show, gonna be who worked for the BBC in the past, currently working in these conflict zones, round the clock. We've got a very busy schedule. Alhamdulillah, we managed to secure a 10-minute slot with him next week. Asad Beg will be speaking on the Security Council next week. So please pencil that into your diaries and tell everybody what's going on, guys. You're not sharing to your colleagues, your friends and family. We need them all to be downloading our app from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store on your Bendgate iPhones. Make sure you are listening to the Security Council.
I love
okay.
That. What's any iSlave out there or any Fandroids out there? Get in contact. We'll start off this.
We'll arrange a show for you guys.
We'll come to the show and let's have a gentleman's debate.
The debate. Let's have it right here in the studio. Okay, with the referee and everything. Yeah, let's do that. If you missed any of our live shows or you just caught the end of this show, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Middle Path Radio YouTube channel, to catch up on all our live shows. Okay, that includes the Bangla Obimot Opinion Hour on Sundays. That also includes our Islamic class, which is Madarij al-Salikin on Saturdays. So tune in for those, and if you miss them by any chance, go catch them again on the YouTube channel. I think that brings us to the end, Mr. Producer.
Yes, indeed.
We'll see you, brothers and sisters, inshallah, on the other side next week, Tuesday at 10 p.m. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
In a world overrun by neocon warmongers, and with the mass media in the pockets of the cabal elite, there remains one bastion of truth amidst the confusion. One beacon of light shining through the murky fog of spin and Islamophobic propaganda. That's right, it's the NP Radio Security Council, the final frontier in the fight for freedom and fairness. I give you the Security Council.
أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد أبدا لن نحيد عن خطى الإيمان دربنا درب قويم دربنا درب قويم بالهدى القرآني سائر في طريق الحق يا جند الله.